Hello Prêt-à-Template designers. This video is going to be about drawing a crossbody bag with a leather texture and sequins, and I'm starting with this template. I'm removing one view and leaving two others semi-transparent, and I'm going to use them all the way in my final illustration. I'm not going to trace the lines. So I'm just finding the color which I will color fill directly into the template. So I've added this color to my palette, to my custom palette, and now holding on to this tool and just dropping them, dragging and dropping it to the areas that I need. It just allows me to color fill instantly that area. I really want to focus more on the detailed leather texture, so I'm not going, I don't need to change the design of the bag. That's why I'm using the template. But if you need to redesign it or do some alterations, you will need to trace it. So I've decided to just take this round marker and fill in the small areas manually, which is going to be faster, using the smallest size of the brush. So I chose two sides of the bag for illustrating the leather technique. On the left side, on the side of the bag, and the front of the bag I'm going to use with a very small portion of leather, just to show you how to illustrate the sequin part. So this is pretty much it, just color filling the entire area. I'm just finishing a couple of small spots. So I've added one more layer, and I want to start coloring it with different light and shadow and use a texture on it. So I'm just dragging a toggle a little bit to get a darker color. And I took a watercolor brush because I want the leather to be a little bit rough, but at the same time not very shiny. So I'm just using a slightly darker color, and as I imagine this bag is round, the distribution of the shadow is going to be following that shape. So approximately half of the bag, the bottom half, is going to be in the shadow, and the upper part will be having a light. So it's almost like the way you would shade a cylinder, but like sideways. And I've picked some similar blue color to get like a lighter value for the light part. So the pattern that I will use from the library is in this leather section, and you can see it's the one that I will try and swatch right now on the bag. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. This one is also nice, but I think I've already made my mind about using the first one, so I'll actually stick to it, and I will take a darker shade of this blue. It's a bit too dark. So I think I'll add one more layer because I feel that I can apply the texture fairly accurate, so I didn't have to erase the remaining parts that went out of the border. So just try and be really careful applying it. I still have to remove the excess on the second layer, so let it be there, but the texture layer I'm going to actually pay attention and apply it carefully. So as the bag gets darker in the shadow, I'm going to have to vary the color of my texture as well. and I will get it darker as well, but I will not allow it to have too much of a contrast, because naturally that does not occur in the shadow, and you'll always be able to see more texture in the light. However, it shouldn't be light against your dark color, so I'm still gonna drag it darker towards the shadow parts. So I'm trying to keep the transition smooth, and I think it looks quite well. I'm just really trying to get it consistent throughout the shadow. Okay, so it's time to work with eraser and get rid of all the extra color. So I switched to the other layer to remove the extra texture part where I was dragging it across these shapes. Okay, I think it looks good, but I think it's missing some of the details. So I will take this really light color and I will switch to the straight line option to highlight some of these parts which will have more volume. The edge of parts like seams. So I'm just enhancing some of the highlights to describe the shape better. And probably I'll just take a very dark color to with a straight line to get those really deep shadows as well. And I'm almost tracing the template, but just like drawing next to the original lines. So I want to get a much darker color to draw some cast off shadows. Yeah, and I haven't realized that I didn't switch back to the freehand line, so I did that and just trying to create some cast off shadows. So all these metal parts and the leather strap, they would create the shadows from one side. So I'm adding one more layer. It's time to color the metal parts, and I will switch to this marker, and I like to use these colors from the eye palette. There are a few grays that are really nice for metal parts, and I will start with this lighter color just to fill in the entire area. So the next thing I'll do is just simply in 3 steps add shadows, and I will add highlights as well. So I will take a darker color first. I switch to a pen and I will take a much darker gray and just add these really straightforward kind of parts of shadow. So to basically render any metal, you need at least three shades. The lightest, the highlight, the middle shade and the dark one for the shadows. And the difference between these three values will depict how shiny that metal is, whether it's matte, setting finish, or it's a high shine. So the more shiny it is, the more the difference will be between these three values. Of course, you can get more, and actually the shinier metal is, the more different values you will actually find in its surface. But the least you can get away with are three. And as you can see, I'm going to use a pretty dark in the shadow, and I will use white color as my highlight, so I'm aiming for a very high shine reflective finish. And if you wonder what's the idea behind how to place these shadows, is that you have to think of first the direction of light source and the shape of the piece that you're coloring, because it will always follow that shape and the shadows will be always the other side from the light source. So now this area is going to be the sequin part, and I will create a pin with this picture that I saved from the web, and I'll just keep it on the my working area and delete the pin, just so that I can refer to it. And you can see what I'm going for is the multicolor option. I'll create some simple design, probably a couple of stripes that I will try to create in different colors. I will get probably similar shades, and just for the fun of it, create these patterns. So I need to fill in this area first with one uniform color. So I drag and drop it on this area to color fill it, and I want to create a few stripes of a similar colors, so I'm picking a straight line to do that, and this round marker. I think I will create this diagonal line, maybe right across the middle, and I will fill in what's in between. So this area is going to be second color, and I will pick like one more similar shade. So this will be my last area of color, so there's going to be 3 of them. And it might look like some sort of ombre effect, I don't know, not exactly, but you know, it's just a play of similar colors. I hope it will look cute, but I just want to discover the technique of how to actually create the separation of 3 different sequin colors, and what steps you need to take, because sometimes creating just one color, the simplest thing you can do is just get a picture on the web and paste it there and remove everything around to make it fit the shape. But sometimes you have a really specific design in your mind, something unusual, and you actually have to draw that and illustrate that by hand. So how would you go about doing something like this? So I've saved all these 3 shades to my custom palette just to have them in case, and I'm going for this very specific pattern of a fish scales, or like snake skin. I don't know how to call it. It's a snake skin, yeah, like this one. And I'm taking a separate layer to put it with a darker color, like slightly darker. So this snake print, if I will run across the bag. So like this is the new layer that I'm working on. I'll run it all across the bag. This is what will happen. But usually when there are sequin pattern, they will not look to the side. They will look down like the reference that I have. So what I will do right now is copy this layer, hide the one below. I will go to a scissor tool and cut it. And then I will drag it and move it to the side of the canvas, and I will rotate it so it looks to the direction that I need. And then I will apply it. And I will erase the original one. And then I will take scissors again and grab the one that I've just created and place it instead of that one, and I can resize it if I need to. Sorry. And yeah, you can just deleted it by mistake. So yeah, you can take eraser and get rid of everything that you don't need outside of the borders of the area which you will create the sequin pattern on. So after I've done this, I have to work on the colors under this pattern. So here's my pattern. I can delete the one that was another way and create one more layer underneath the scales pattern, but on top of my actual colors. So like in between these two. And I will take this thin round marker, because it's like semi-transparent, and pick a similar shades, like a tiny darker, and highlight some of the scales into a separate areas that are gonna represent my like middle shadow, I would say, because some of the scales will catch the light and some catch the shadow, and they will form these areas. So the pattern will allow you to navigate and fill in these areas directly using this like scales pattern. So you can create these beautiful zones of light and dark. So as you can see, I'm following this pattern to fill in a few of them. And I'll get like a few, 2-3 shades darker, and just repeat this step. It has to be irregular. There shouldn't be any specific rhythm to it. And sometimes this area, it's nice to be like random. Sometimes some areas have to be large and take over some spaces, and some of them have to be just one like single or just a single dark spots. So using this method, you can pretty much create any pattern that you want, and it will be relatively easy. Just had to adjust the light. Yeah, so keep going until you feel that there's enough areas with light and with dark. So the second section I will work exactly the same way, nothing different, just different color. So yeah, this takes time. If you want to be more careful, you can take time like I do and really get every part and just carefully fill out the ones you like. But if you just want to get like an impression of this pattern, you can as well just grab a bigger brush and do a less detailed work. It depends on the sketch that the level of detail that you want to achieve on your sketch. So I'm starting on the third color already and just filling in again the areas with a slightly different color value. And now I will take the white color to get a couple of pieces that catch the light, see like this one, and fill them in with an entirely white color. I think placing them somewhere among the lighter colors that you have is going to look better, but again, it shouldn't be it should be completely random anyway. I think on a piece like this, on a flat piece, yeah, it shouldn't have any artificial pattern to it, so just try to make it random. And it's time to get like super dark pieces that will make it more reflective. If you think of a very like mirror like shiny sequins, you will have to add darker colors to it, because these now look like closer to matte, like semi-shiny. But it depends, it's up to you what design you're creating. So I want to try and push it towards like a more shiny side and see how that looks like. So now the last shade, I'm picking the darker color, and using this toggle I will just pull it towards the darker value and add some darkness to certain pieces. So what I want to do now is I'm thinking to take one more layer, and I need to unite some of these scales with a white color, because when the light penetrates them, it it eliminates these tiny shadows. So I want to add a few of them that has a white trim, and I'm thinking to unite some of these white ones into like a single beam of light as well. So that's what I will focus on right now. It's not a necessary step, but I want to just explore a few techniques and show you how it will affect the final look. It helps to like lift one edge and like to separate them slightly. Looks nice. So it's time to unite some of these whites. I will take a larger size of brush and fill in these pieces. So I will unite them into like a single shape. I think just a few touches, and this already looks pretty good. Yes, I think it looks great. Just a few more. Okay, so I will remove this picture out of the way now, and I need to create the same on the side view. So I'll copy this layer, and I will use scissors and drag it to this picture and apply it. So select this new layer. Okay, I had to finish with the scissor tool. So this is the layer that I need, and I will take an eraser and remove everything outside of the template borders. And I need a little bit of that texture. I don't know, should I copy the one from the front view? So if I take, it's just the area is too small for this texture, I guess, so I will just take a pen and create couple of these small shapes on my own, and I think that would be enough. So now I need one layer in the very bottom, so I'll drag everything on top, and the very last layer will be for the shadow. I'll take this flat marker with a gray color and just sweep it across here underneath the both views to sort of visually connect them. So I will concentrate a darker color underneath the bags itself. That's where the shadow gets stronger and darker. And I will take a lighter color to like diffuse it into the surrounding area and to clean up the edges. And finally, with the white color, I will refine it a little bit to make it more straight. Yeah, I think it looks great. So I really hope this tutorial was informative and you can start drawing your own designs. Please give this video a like and subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching.